I have girlfriends in their 30s who are dating, dissing on a date because the man didn't show any leadership. And it's
Wow.
like, now, they're equally dissing on a date when the man organizes everything and shows leadership. And it's like, okay. And then they come and they say, well, how am I meant to be feminine if they're not going to be masculine?
What if the fights you're having in your relationship aren't really about what was said, but about the language that you're using to say it? Welcome to New Paradigm Intimacy. I'm your host, Victoria Bardovich, and in today's session, I sit down with Elizabeth Walker. She is Australia's leading NLP trainer, a personal development expert who specializes in how you shape your words, shape your reality. We explore how small shifts, like using my relationship to our relationship, can completely transform how you connect with your partner. This one will change how you speak to yourself and also the people that you love. Welcome. So I would love to hear from you, Elizabeth. You want to talk to us today about the wrong language. What is the wrong language inside of relationship, especially romantic connection?
Yeah, this is such an important thing that is so overlooked because language these days is very identifying, right? So people are like, my marriage, my relationship, and there's this huge identity that is associated with it where there's ownership, right? And they really own it, which is all great when it's going fantastically. And it's terrible when things start to go wrong.
Yeah.
Because if it's my marriage rather than our marriage, in our marriage, two people get to fix it. In my marriage, I have to fix it. And people don't notice these little tiny nuances in language that actually create a very different picture. In our marriage, if there's something wrong in our marriage, or something wrong in our partnership, or something wrong in our relationship, then both of us are responsible. And I have a true belief that in a relationship, it's 100% responsibility. It's not 50-50. One person's 100% responsible and the other one is. So that as someone, drops the ball a bit, the other one can lift them up. And if the other one's dropping, then the other one can lift them up. And it's about equal responsibility and it's 100%. It's not 50-50. And if you're having a baby and you're in the midst of labor, you can't be responsible for the relationship in that moment. Your partner has to be, right?
Yeah.
Like it's 100% on them. And you are just doing the thing that the body does. And in any relationship, if there's not 100 and 100 and if it's 50-50, and if you're saying it's my marriage, then my marriage implies that it's 100% you. Like the basis of what I do. So if we then look at the wrong language in relationship, if we're blaming someone else for something, which is often what happens when there's a disagreement, it's someone's fault, looking to find fault, we're looking for the blame. If we're looking for that rather than turning it around on ourselves and going, how did I create this? Then what we're going to do is create more dissent, more dissolution of the relationship. And so the wrong language is you said, you did, you, right? The right language is I feel, my experience has been, what happened for me is. And when we're using the you, or my, because both of them are individual languages, we're not actually in the context of relationship. We're in the context of our own relationship in our own head. And if you're in relationship, you're dead, right? You've got to be in your body to be able to connect. Yes, things need to be organized from a intellectual perspective where you're actually using your mind. However, most of the time, what you need to do is be in your body because there's no connection in the mind. The connection exists in the body. The language of connection, though, exists in the mind and comes from the mind. And so we have to actually allow that language, time, and the energetic essence to filter through the mind down into the heart or the body, wherever you decide it is, whether it's the heart or the gut. Most people operate out of one or the other. And then allow that language to translate through to the relationship. Now, if you're in an argumentative situation, you're going to have both of you in your head initially. And the key is how to get back to the body and get back to our relationship as quickly as possible. Because the kinds of things that get said are, you did this, you said that, or I did this and you didn't do that, or I said this and you didn't do this. And that's all about comparison. And comparison just creates separateness.
Mm.
If it if you start using that, I felt this and what I wanted to feel instead was this. So if it's I felt as though you ignored me and what I wanted to feel was a deep sense of connection when we had this experience, then that's showing the other person what was potentially available.
Yeah.
Rather than going, you did this, where they have to go, oh my God, I've messed up and I'm now wrong. And they'll either go into fight or flight. It's how can you elevate the whole experience? And if you say my relationship or my marriage, my relationship, my partnership, my connection, then we're making it individualistic. So it's like my relationship isn't like that when you're talking to your partner. It's like, hang on a minute, are you in a separate one from what I'm in? Like, what's going on
Yeah.
here? Because our relationship is something that's sacred. And our relationship gets attention. And our relationship is something we work on. Our relationship is something we do together. Whereas
Mm.
my marriage, my relationship, my partnership is something, it just implies that I do it myself. However, this is common societal language across the board, not just in relationships. People are saying things like my depression, my anxiety, my ADHD, there's this huge ownership piece that's happening in society, yet it's individual ownership. And so when you plug that into a relationship, if you expect to own you and you expect your partner to own them, when you come together, where's the dual ownership? Where's the dual connection? Where is the actual relationship? And if we go deeper than that and go into the etymology of the words when we're talking about language, a ship traditionally, if we go back to ancient times, was something that was sent out and came back, right? So
Mm.
you would ship, and usually what was on a ship was something of great value. And great value in the olden days might have been apples, and it might have
Mm.
been lead, and it might have been gold, and it might have been wheat, and it might have actually been a wife.
Mm.
Like commonplace for wives to be shipped to their husbands. And so to ship something means to have something valuable go out and come back. And so when we're talking about putting relation on a ship, right,
Mm.
we're talking about the ability to connect and communicate in a way that sends it out and brings it back. And yet, when we're using that I language, and when we're using that, my language and your language versus our language, then what we're doing is we're not really allowing the ship to go backwards and forwards with something valuable. We're just expecting the ship to come in all the time to us. And it's a
Mm.
selfish way of doing relationship. It's not an effective way of doing relationship because you're doing it by yourself.
Mm.
Whereas when we talk about our relationship, we're sending out that relation. It's super valuable to the other person who can receive it in a valuable way and then send it back. And it's a very different way of doing life.
Absolutely.
If you can look in the midst of a fight, and let's talk about some of the real fights that happen in real relationships where there's kids and there's a mortgage and there's stressed, people are stressed to their eyeballs, right? They're really, really stressed. And then all of a sudden it's like, all I wanted was you to look after the kids for 5 minutes while I had a shower.
Mm.
The issue is not the shower and the issue is not the kid,
Yeah.
right? How did it ever get to that in the first place? How
Mm.
did it ever get to the point where you couldn't have a 5-minute shower without looking after the kids and having them screaming in your face when all you needed was a little bit of downtime? But that might be your fault and it might be his fault. Yet, if we're talking about a monogamous relationship within, I've just realized that I've used gender specifics and that was not my intention. So if you're hearing this, please forgive me. But if in my situation, I tend to operate from the self. So if we're in that situation where it's, I wanted the shower, he wanted to not look after the kids. How did it get to that? How
Mm.
did you not have a level of communication where you were able to say, hey, lately I've been feeling like this and what I would prefer to feel is this, where the other person
Mm.
had deep understanding and deep gratitude for who you are as a human and was able to go, great, what I'm feeling right now is this and what I want to feel like this. How can we work together so that we both get to feel what we want to feel? How can we work together so that the outcome for both of us is what we want? So that
Yep.
the kids in the relationship are not experiencing us at our worst. So the kids in the
Mm.
relationship experiencing us at our best, presuming you have kids. if you don't have kids, how do we get to experience the best outcome for us,
Mm.
right? Instead of I want the best, you want the best. Like, and this doesn't negate the idea of needing your own needs met in a relationship. Like, you absolutely need your selfish needs met, right? I'm a big believer in actually there are needs in relationship that need to be met, and you can meet them yourself, and equally your partner may be able to help you meet them.
Mm.
It doesn't mean any of that. It's how do we do it together? How is this important to both of us? How can we have those needs met together, even though they're very individual needs?
Mm.
So the right language to use is I feel, and it's our and us, not
Mm.
me.
Yeah. So it's so interesting, isn't it, when we start thinking about our needs and these things that people need to do for our needs, it's like it's so like demanding. Also, I feel like it's just like the day and age that we live in. I don't think that my parents were so focused on, their
Right.
needs and what they were, it's like, and even when I listen to this in dating, it's like so much about like, he needs to do this because he's the man. She needs to respond like this because she's the
Oh,
woman. Like there's so many rules. I just feel bad for people nowadays.
oh my goodness. I have girlfriends in their 30s. I'm 52 for context. I have girlfriends in their 30s who are dating, dissing on a date because the man didn't show any leadership. And it's
Wow.
like, now, they're equally dissing on a date when the man organizes everything and shows leadership. And it's like, okay. And then they come and they say, well, how am I meant to be feminine if they're not going to be masculine? And it's like, that- like this is a complete skewing of what masculinity and femininity is. Like, yes, your man can lead you. And in my personal relationship, Simon absolutely leads our investment portfolio. He leads our financial decisions, and I get to have an input in that too. However, if I was to leave it up to him to lead us in booking a holiday, it would never go well. It would just never happen. There's
Yeah.
way too many variables. I'm way better at looking for flights than what he is. And so this skewed vision of all or nothing in relationship, it's like, how about give and take? How about we do it together? How about we focus on our strengths instead of our weaknesses and work to each other's strengths?
Mm.
Like, and it's something I see. I see it in dating in young people. I see it in young relationships. And surprisingly enough, I don't see it in very young relationships. So when we
Mm.
get back down to 20-year-olds, like that are in relationship with children, for example, so I've got a young son and daughter-in-law that have two children. They seem to be great at this.
Right.
They seem to be really great at being selfish and having relationship. And I'm unsure at what happened. And I've looked at it from a sociological perspective, like what happened in society that changed it. And I think that what happened is I'm the last of the generation that perhaps allowed ourselves to be abused. And when I say it like that, like we allowed ourselves to be doormats, to just accept it however it was. And, and a lot of women my age and older have had that experience of a messy divorce and things like that. And I think that the generation after us, which are the 30 to 45 or sort of 25 to 45-year-olds, are like, not on my watch. I'm going to get what I need. And it
Yeah, true.
changed all what happened to their mothers, right? And they're like, I'm not going to let that happen. And yet the younger generation has seen what's happened to their sisters and gone, well, I actually want a bit of both. And how do I get a
Mm.
bit of both? And they seem to have worked it out. The language inside your head is part of the problem as well, right? Like, so how do you actually think about yourself? If you're relying on your partner to tell you that you're beautiful, then that's not a partner language problem. That's a you language problem.
Mm.
You know, how can you do the work on yourself to look in the mirror and go, "I'm actually a phenomenal, beautiful being, created however I was created, regardless of what my body size and shape is. Like, I look phenomenal to me." Because if you look phenomenal, if you're going to show up in your relationship feeling phenomenal, feeling like you have that joy in your own physical presence, that will allow your partner to actually show you how he can enjoy that or she can enjoy that.
Mm.
Whereas if you
Yeah.
end up covering yourself and you've got that language in your head of, I don't really look good enough today, my hair's a mess, oh my God, I forgot to do waxing or whatever it is, Like if you're showing up like that, then you're not going to get what you want in relationship because the language inside your head is all wrong.
Mm.
You know, you can be so present in yourself that you can show up with full presence for someone else
Yeah. I think
and
you just
full
us
presence.
into that place of like, where is the language coming from? You know, it's like it's all very well to say I look beautiful, and but if you don't mean it fully all the way through, you know, it's like, and that can be felt as well. You know, and actually that's kind of
Yeah,
what I see in dating experiences. It's like there is this you know, idea of I'm being the feminine and I'm being these all these things that I've been told are on the list of what I need to be. But inside, it's just like it's not empowering. It doesn't feel good. They're just doing it because that's what's been mentally, you know, sold to
exactly.
us. That
It's
that's how things should be. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
It's a language of the mind. So they can say all the right things and they
Yeah.
can express what they want to be, but they're not actually being it on the inside. You know, people
Mm.
say to me, how have you been able to hold this big business and be so masculine and equally hold a great relationship where you're clearly in the feminine? And I make a joke, and it's a joke that has got me into a lot of trouble, although listeners may find it funny. The door that leads out from my office back into my house, in the olden days, a golden shower was literally just a shower of golden light. Apparently, it doesn't mean that anymore. So, Frank, I have a rule that I literally walk through the golden shower on the way out of my office, and all of that gold sparkly light just filters off whatever's been going on in my office. And I meet my husband in presence, in femininity, in vulnerability. I meet him with my heart, not with my head. In my office, I'm in my head. I'm thinking, I'm doing, I'm acting in the masculine, which, you know, the divine feminine can move between both. However, the minute I walk out the door, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a cook and a cleaner. My identity is so multifaceted. It doesn't require me to just follow the rules in my head. I'm following the call in my heart. I'm feeling that I'm having about myself and about my partner. And I know some people might be thinking, well, how do you think you're beautiful? Right. And as in, how do they do it? How do they go from the thought that, okay, I've dressed up nicely, I've made myself up, I've got makeup on, I've got the right jewelry on, I've got the right shoes on. How do they change that language in their head from looking visually and going, yes, I look beautiful, which is happening in the mind, to actually feeling their body and feeling the essence that's inside them? Like every single human is a creative being, you know? Like we have this like innate beauty. And if you could see your own potential, the language in your head would match that, right? Like if you could see your own potential and actually see yourself from a zoomed out view of, like, this is hilarious because I'm looking out my window just now, like, finding the words, and there's this beautiful rainbow. Like, if you were sitting on the top of the rainbow, looking down at your life and thinking about all the amazing things that you've done and who you've helped over the years and how you've actually been, you would be so proud of yourself and
Mm.
you'd see gorgeous view of yourself where you would know that you're beautiful.
Mm.
But while you're in your head examining whether one eyebrow looks different from the other, or like I could sit here now going, gee, my lips are a bit dehydrated right now. There's lines on them.
I
Like if I'm doing that, like that's available to me in the mind, but it's not what exudes out of my heart. What exudes
mm.
out of my heart is this beauty of connection, the beauty of being willing to go deep with someone else. And that's all related to the language that's in my mind,
Mm.
right? So the language that's in my mind that's saying your lips are cracked, that's
Mm.
the language of not good enough, right? And that's just a program. However, if I'm looking at the language in the way that I show up in the world and the way that I care for people, the way that I've dedicated my life to that, then that language is actually, you're so beautiful. You're such a beautiful human. You're so willing, right? And
Mhm.
I think that most of your audience is like that. I think they
Mm.
deeply crave connection, depth, presence,
Mm.
and yet they forget to do it in themselves first,
Mm.
right? Because they've got all that other language. It's just the monkey mind going, check this, do this. What's that? Remember, I've got to be that. Make my list, become the list. Like, oh my goodness, how do I become that? Right.
Mm. Mm.
And and it shows up in the most interesting ways in relationship. Like you'll be challenged to meet all of who you are in relationship.
Absolutely.
You know, like you're going to be pushed to your limit and you will always marry everything you're not. and
Mm,
everything that you need. You
mm,
know, if it's in marriage, deep relationship, you're always going to end up in a relationship that is going to be the things that you need,
mm,
the lessons that you learn. And so if the language in your mind can appreciate that I'm here for us and we're doing this for us and this is our relationship rather than what's happening for me. I don't like what's happening to me right now. I don't like how you're treating me. I don't like what you're saying to me. How about I don't like how we're speaking to each other right now? What do you need from me that these feelings that you're having that you're expressing through words can disappear?
mm,
Like, what can I do for you
mm.
to make us better?
Yeah.
Because a long-term relationship, it's not built like a lot of people go, oh, it's built on trust and it's built on love. Well, trust is something you can give, no one can earn it.
Mm,
Love is all part of that language thing, right? Love is just an emotion.
mm,
And it depends on whether you want that emotion or not as to whether you have it.
mm,
The real thing that happens is it's built on a consistent effort and a consistent connection to want to be together. Even if you want completely different things, if you desire to be together, if you are constantly desiring each other, then that will build a great relationship
mm,
because you'll naturally move toward things you both want rather than away from them.
mm. Yeah, powerful. I think one of the things that I took away from that as well is this idea of just like the building of the culture of your relationship, and that also being like quite a unique thing. It's like, yes, we can have
Yeah.
all the right language and all that sort of stuff, but it's like what I was hearing from in my mind was just like, unless we're connected to the same energy and the same like ideas and same sort of yeah, just like culture to live inside of, it's like doesn't really matter what language we use, it's if that part's not there. And even when you were saying all
Yeah.
the questions you could say to people, it's like they really has to be coming from a certain place inside of ourselves, doesn't it?
Yeah, so then that's that translation again, right? So your language, when translated down into your heart, actually becomes your values,
Mm,
right? It's like, and if you share the same values, then your behavior might be different. However, the core values are the same. Then you've always got a place to come back to,
mhm,
right? And this becomes like really obvious when you have a child, right?
mm,
And Simon and I are learning the first time because we didn't have children together, yet we now share grandchildren.
no,
And it's really interesting. We both have the same core values. You know, we know that we value routine and we
mm,
value some timing. And you know, when the kids are at our house, they go to sleep at the same time every day. And there's no crying, there's no arguing. It's just what's always happened at grandma's. And,
mm,
you know, that's not the way that mothers are taught to mother these days. And I think that the connected nature of motherhood these days is so much nicer than when I had my children and you just dumped them in a bed and left them to cry because it
yeah,
was 4 hours until the next feed. Like, I think there's absolute value in the way that motherhood is happening these days. However, I equally think that greatness in routine. And so it's like, how do you merge and meld all of that together to get this great relationship with your grandchild and a
mm,
great relationship with your own children so that they want to leave their children with you.
yeah,
Um,
it's
and they feel, they feel safe to leave their children with you. Like,
yeah,
all comes down to how can you utilize the language that you have, embody it into your values, and then have it come out your mouth in the way that you mean it, not in the way that is problematic for the receiver.
yeah,
So there's a translation process that happens when it comes into your body. It's just coming out of your mind. You're never going to get the result because you're just going to say it the way you think it. And we all think
mm,
so differently. Some people think in pictures, some people think in feelings, some people think in analysis and data. And if
mm,
you're a data person talking to a feeling person, the language is so completely different. You're going to
yeah,
get someone who says, first, we're going to do this, and secondly, we're going to do that, and third, we're going to do that. And the other person's sitting there going, oh my God, but what about how I feel?
yeah,
Right? And so the translator of language occurs in the body.
mm,
And so how can you bring language down, filter it through the values, through the body, and then actually deliver it in a way that the other person gains value?
yeah. I have a curiosity about you and Simon. You've been together a long time, as long as I've known you both. And I
Yeah.
am curious, like, was there a moment where you noticed like the cultures collided and that was just, you guys just had all the same values, or did you just meet each other like that?
No, absolutely not. So let's go back to when we met. So when we met, I've been a very, like, for your audience, very straighty 180 kind of person, right? Like I grew up and valued education. I studied hard. I've got 4 different degrees. I everything was very, this is how you do it. There was right and wrong. It was a very black and white way of thinking. And when I met Simon, he, so I have to put it clearly, I've never done drugs in my life. I've never got drunk or done alcohol in that sort of sense in my life. And I met Simon, and 3 weeks in, or maybe 2 weeks into our relationship, he's like, I'm going to this party this weekend, so I probably won't be available all weekend. And I'm like, what? Like, I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, who has a party that goes for 3 days? I'm like, why can't I come? And he he's like, "Well, I don't think it's your kind of party." And I went, "Well, where is it?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I said, "What? What do you mean you don't know where the party is?" And he's like, "Well, it's this party and you sign up for it and you pay your money and then you get told like 20 minutes before the bus is leaving where you get on the bus. And then you go on the bus to this place and it's hired out." And I said, "So no one knows where they're going until they get on the bus?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "So that the police don't know about it." I'm like, "Oh my God. What is going on? Who is this person?" Anyway, he's going off to this party where there's like, it's basically here, these are my words. I have no idea what it really is like. He's basically going to this drug fest to get on a bender all weekend. And I'm like, I am like, what? And I'm like, that is totally against my values. So I'm like, I said to him, "Well, okay, cool. Like, you can go to the party, and I don't want any part of you or it. So see you later, mate." And I
Wow.
really held strong in my values. I'm like, I don't want to date someone who's needing that, right? And at the time, it was a black and white existence. It's like, if you need that, what's wrong with the rest of your life? There must be problems. So I want to stay away from that, right? As opposed to now recognizing, now that I've spent, had a little bit more awakening, like this is a long time ago, had a bit more of awakening with, my own son being a drug addict at one point, and recognizing that there's so many different reasons that people use those kinds of substances, some for pleasure and enjoyment, perhaps. And so so I'm grudging this guy going, "Nah, see you later, mate." And he he turned around and he went, "Actually, you know what? That's actually not really in my line of values either. And I really want a relationship, and I really want a relationship with someone who is able to hold their values and is able to have those standards." And even though he didn't agree with my standards, like, he honestly didn't think there was anything wrong with that, um, he was willing to meet it based on the fact that it was a standard that I set, and I was willing to forgo the relationship if that wasn't met. Now, I analyzed that quite a lot in the beginning because I was like, maybe he didn't really want to give up that party. Maybe he didn't really want to be with me, but he didn't want to not be with me. So he kind of had to. And did I force the issue? And I think anyone who knows me well knows that I have a set of standards and I meet them all the time. Like, it, I would say that I'm probably quite rare in that I'm constantly meeting my own standards. And that's where our values aligned, because he likes meeting standards. Now, the standards were really different. Yet the concept of meeting standards was the same. And so over the years, there's definitely been times where those different standards have created a clash, right? So I'm the person who, if there's something to get done for work, I'm going to do it the minute someone tells me it's available for me to do, because I like getting it done. Get it done. Whereas when I book appointments, if I book them in the moment, I tend to forget that I've booked them. And if I don't have my PA or someone putting it in the diary at the time, or I can't voice note at the time, I simply just forget about them. Or I have a really busy life and I have lots of things that come up in the moment and then I have to cancel them. So whereas for Simon, if he books a meeting, that's a meeting, So there's like that, where we differ in what the standard is. However, we both still hold standards really strongly. And when you really condense that down, that's values for you, right? Like, so it's a value of, I am who I am because I meet my own standards, because I'm a constant in my own life, and I can trust myself because I constantly meet my own standards. And so that ability to trust ourselves exists in both of us, even though it's in completely different areas of life. Like if I
Mm.
gave Simon a job, it might get done today and it might get done in 3 years, literally. Like the other day, he put a doorbell on our front gate. Now,
Mm.
I purchased that doorbell 3 years ago,
Wow.
and it never got done. And it's like, did it matter? Was it worth fighting about? It was just a doorbell. I don't really want anyone coming to my house anyway, so it didn't really matter. However, he just randomly one day installs the doorbell, and it's like, have you been thinking about installing that for 3 years? Or did it just happen to show up in your appearance today and you thought, oh, I'll install that? Like, I have no idea. If it was me, I would have bought the doorbell and put it up.
Mm.
And this is where those standards like those actual standards themselves are different in their minutiae. However, the value of standards is the same.
Mm.
Right? And so this is that difference between the language of it versus what's in your heart. Other things that have been fun for us have been, like, I think sexually, when we first met, there was a little bit of vanilla. And like, this may seem funny based on the other things that I've just talked about, that he was far more vanilla than
Wow.
me.
I thought you were going
And
to
it
say
came,
you were the one. Okay.
no, not at all. And so that was a big learning curve for him. And like the concept of consent and permission and, actually, I'm asking for this. Like, it's okay to do that because I'm asking for it.
Mm.
It feels so wrong. And it's like, it's not wrong. It's actually great. And trust me, you're going to love it once you actually step over that line. And it's like, those kinds of things I think have been really fun to explore together. And the language, again, having the language to be able to communicate that, as opposed to some of the women that I coach, that they don't even have the language of their own pleasure for themselves,
Mm.
yet alone the language to be able to communicate that to a partner.
Mm.
And I was before this interview, there's a beautiful 60-year-old lady that I'm coaching at the moment. And I know that she would be totally fine for me to mention her story. She came to me because she wanted to learn who she was. Her children have all grown up, moved out. She's finished work. Her partner's retired. And she's like, I don't know who I am anymore. And I just want to find out who I am. And I'm like, well, what do you enjoy? She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, great. So let's start with pleasure. Like, what brings you pleasure? Oh, my garden. Great. So go out in the garden. I want you to actually connect to the feelings. Right? What are the feelings that you feel in your body? Not the thoughts of my garden looks pretty, but actually experiencing beauty through a feeling rather than through words. And, we got her to that. And she's finally worked out that she can experience pleasure, which is beautiful. And now we're working on that ability to experience pleasure with someone else.
Amazing.
And the rhetoric around that is, what's he going to think? Like, I haven't been that kind of person for years. Like, what do you mean to walk into the kitchen in my underwear? And, I know that some people listening to this, that they're like in your world more, Vic. And so like they've obviously had a much bigger language experience of sexuality and pleasure. Whereas this woman's had none of that in her life. And she's finally working out, well, what do you mean? It's okay to walk around my house in my underwear? And I said, it's okay to walk around your house naked. And she's like, I would never. And it's like, oh my goodness. And there's another lady that actually reminds me this morning, we were talking about celebrating yourself. And I said, do you know it's raining on the Gold Coast today? Where you are, it's sunny. If I was you right now, I would take my clothes off and go and stand in the sun and just feel the sun on my skin. And she goes, oh, I've never done that. And I went, what? What do you mean? Take your clothes off, get out in the sun, and then write me a message as soon as you've done it. She goes, it's so warm on my skin. And I think we forget, like in the worlds that we live in, that there are people who have no access to any of this language. They don't have the language of pleasure. They don't have the language of self-love. They don't have the language of relationship. And the relationship with themselves is at risk, and
Yeah.
so giving them the right language of how to speak to them in relationship with themselves, with the mind and the heart in that relationship is just as important as the relationship with others.
Absolutely. Love it. Okay. Well, to wrap up, I would just love to hear. I mean, seems like you've had some really awesome insights of what people can do to stay in connection with themselves, first of all, and what they can do to communicate things really well to their partners. Is there anything you want to leave us with that? And also, where can people find you as well if they want more of this epic coaching of getting naked and being a bit more wild in their lives?
I think that largely my external persona, it's only once you've come into my world that
Yeah.
kind of stuff even comes out. And
Mhm.
like this feels quite new to me, being somewhere public talking
Yeah.
like this. Whereas normally it's like someone comes into my world through integrated NLP and, then they meet me about language and then they get coaching and they might be building a business. And then you find like that's when it starts to get deeper with me rather than it being at the face of my business. Because I believe that all of it linked together, and it's a step by step process. So where they can, like, in terms of final thoughts for you, if you're having issues in your relationship with someone else, it's a mirror that you're having issues in your relationship with self.
Yeah.
And how can you work on the relationship you have with self first so that your language about self becomes available for the other person? Because if you don't think you're beautiful and someone else tells you you are, even if they're earnestly telling you that, truly believe in the goddess nature of you, if you can't see that goddess within, you're never going to believe it and you're never going to hear it, which means you're never going to experience it. And so, how can you really work on that language within self and that presence within self to make yourself available for a partner, to make yourself available in relationship, even if it's friendship? Like, you want to be able to tell, like, I love telling the beautiful women in my team how beautiful they are. And the best thing is that when they hear me say it, they get this almost childlike feeling on their face where they're just like, "Oh, thank you." And they're really able to receive it. Whereas if I'm out in society and I say to someone, "Oh my goodness, you're beautiful," they kind of go, "Oh, no, 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 so are you." And they just like, it's so short lived. And it's like, whereas the women in my team, they're just like, they languish in it. And I really love their ability to receive that. And so that would be the final thing is that, just get in relationship with yourself before you try to fix the relationship that you have with others. In terms of finding me, Instagram is the best place. I actually answer most of my own messages myself. And that is Elizabeth Ann Walker _EAWT. So reach out with a message if you want to.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.